Hello and welcome to the 8th part of the Opera Sydney tutorial. This is the last part, the rendering part. This tutorial was brought to you by Akrito. Okay, we're going to start by loading an HDR image into Material Editor. Hit Get Material and then Bitmap. Now load an HDR image from your hard drive. You can find several HDR images right here on akrito.com. Just make sure that the file type is set to all files, or at least to HDR, before you can see anything. You can click an image and it will automatically preview it down in the lower part. I want to choose one that I'm going to use by night. And hit open. Hit OK again here. Okay, now just drag and drop it to the Vray light bit texture rollout. Just drag it there and hit instance and then OK. Now we load the HDR into our Vray light and we're going to render to see what's going on. Now it's very important that you set the Vray light from a plane to dome. This will only function if you set the Vray light to function as a dome and not as a plane. Okay, we're going to test this and see what's going on, how it works. Just give it a minute to render. Okay, so here we go. Don't really see a good result. Everything is set up for a very low quality at this point. Now what I want to do, I want to test this using my camera. First select your camera and let's get some basic settings set. First set it to neutral and the shutter speed, let's give it a lower value like 16. Okay, now let's test this again. Remember, we previously tested on a perspective view and now we're testing it on a Vray view of 8 with the F number of 8, which will tend things to be very dark. So that's why I decrease the shutter speed. It's still probably not good enough. For now, let's lower the F number to 2 and let's try again. Okay, I think the physical camera would look okay. Yeah. Basically, what you want to do is keep playing with the F number and the shutter speed. If you want a whiter result, then you should lower both the F number and the shutter speed. Okay, I think it's good enough for now. Now the problem is that the HDR doesn't really do anything at this point. We'll have to go back and see what's the problem with it. Okay, I will decrease the shutter speed even lower. 40 maybe first. Okay, and now let's play a little bit with our lights again. Look at them even a lower value, 0.2 maybe. Let's see how this works. Remember, all the settings are from the rendering engine are set to very low. The radiance map is set to very low, and the light cache is set to 600 samples. And of course, there is almost no anti-aliasing at all in the scene, and the resolution is very small. I just want to test I still want to test the lighting, general lighting of the scene before I head on to add anti-aliasing and higher resolution images. Okay, I'm just going to choose another HDR image. Maybe this one. You can only preview them in the lower part. Windows cannot preview the HDR files. Okay, there's still something not good. I'm just going to use the HDR map as background also to see what's really going on. I've just drag and dropped the HDR image from the material editor to the environment and effects tab on the background environment map. Now, as you can see, it just doesn't appear. Now there's a basic setting that I forgot to do, and I'm probably going to have to do this now. I'm just going to select the light that uses the HDR image and increase the multiplier, and maybe decrease the overall quality of the shadows to 8. I want this to function a little faster. I'm not really interested in good quality at the moment. Okay, so just let's try another one. Okay. It's too much light, probably. Yeah, just cancel that. Maybe one was good enough. Still too much light. Just go out to the output. So I'll just pick another one. You can play with all these HDR. You can find them in the texture folder. Okay. Just make sure that it's set to environment and not texture. I think this was the problem. The HDR cannot function as a general texture. It has to be set as environment map. As you can see now, I don't really need it to be used as a background image. I just want it to produce light in the scene. So in the coordinates tab, make sure that you set it to environment and not to texture. And I think it's a good idea to use spherical environment or cylindrical environment. Okay, that really depends on what type of HDR images you use, but generally spherical environment is a very good choice. Basically, the HDR it's an image wrapped around the sphere that produces lights in the entire scene. Now, as you can see, the sky is clearly visible, and it produces a very cool effect. Still maybe too much light, but we're going to control this. Okay, it's way too burned. But it looks very cool on water, but still the lights are way too burned. Now just pick another HDR. We'll just play with some of these HDR files. Just hit open. Now let's test this again. You have the option to rotate the HDR image using the UV offset. You just rotate it a little bit horizontally, a small offset. Render again. I didn't like the fact that there was a little circle on the top right corner. That was the sun, and I don't want it to be there. That's why I've rotated the HDR image. Okay, maybe I'll just rotate it a little more. Something in this area. Just render again to test this. Okay, I think it looks better now. Just give it a minute to render. Okay, it's time to play a little bit more with the lights. I'll maybe make those lights a little orangey, so it has more effect. The image is too white and blue. I'll make them even more yellowish, the interior lights also. Now the problem is that I have to really test again and again and again all those settings and make sure that everything looks correct. I'll give a little blur to the HDR. Now this won't really be visible, but it will function a little blurry, meaning that the photons that will be emitted from the HDR source will be less calculated, and this will speed things up a little bit. Okay, so just keep playing with the light settings, the light multiplier, light color, the HDR image, maybe even with the camera f number and shutter speed until you get a good effect, until everything looks okay. And when you're happy with what you see, it's time to move to render it in full resolution. Okay, so let's say we've got a pretty good result. Let's go ahead and set the lighting. First things first, let's save the light cache. Pick a path and give it a name. I've hit auto save on the lower part and increase the subdivision to 3000. First I'm going to calculate the light cache. We'll do this one by one. Increase the global subdivision multiplier to 1 and minim samples to 13. Here, just hit render. Now, light cache is not really resolution dependent, so don't worry about this at this point. I'll just make it 102 by 900 and just hit render. Now we'll have to wait until the light cache is calculated. Okay, it will take some time. Okay, so we're done. Now moving ahead, let's switch, it's automatic switch from file, and in the first we'll choose irradiance map. Let's set irradiance map, just set it to high, check autosave, give a place to save, and check switch to saved map. Okay, we've got some basic. Now the resolution is quite important at this point. Okay, so give it a little minute to render. It will take some time to render the irradiance map. Okay, so we're done.